Hello everyone and welcome to yet another part of IBE. In this particular video, we're going to study about FDIs, modes of FDI, motives of FDI, etc. So let's begin. So the different modes of FDI. Let's study about that. The first one is greenfield. Now what is greenfield? Greenfield foreign direct investment means investment in order to start a business from scratch. Yeah, it is a risky venture to start from the grassroots level, of course. Though setting up cost is higher in case of greenfield foreign direct investment, of course, because you have to start from scratch. But there can be resistance from the part of the local community as well. There will be adequate freedom in operations as there is no past for the business. That's the benefit. But arranging the resources such as man, material, money is a challenge. It can be a quite big challenge. So, and also adjusting to the culture of the country is also a hard nut to crack. Like for example, Coca-Cola is starting a business company in India from scratch, a US company. I'm talking about long back. So that can be a greenfield investment, a particular mode. The next mode is brownfield investment. So what is brownfield investment? It is the investment in existing production arrangement by a foreign firm, right? So an important form of brownfield investment is mergers and acquisitions by foreign MNCs in India. So arranging the resources like man, material, money is comparatively easy to as compared to greenfield. Adapting to the country's culture is also easy, but when foreign officials are appointed, it may have an adverse impact. For example, if Air Asia, a Malaysian company, is investing in Air India, understand? So next is mergers and acquisitions. Now, mergers and acquisitions can be of different types. So horizontal foreign direct investment. So horizontal foreign direct investment means investment in the same business but in a different country. That is, a firm conducts the same model and activities abroad relating to the main business. So normally it is done when the current business achieves the saturation point in the existing market. For example, if Starbucks, a US of coffee company, is investing in the coffee business in India, it can be a horizontal merger. So next is vertical foreign direct investment. So it involves the investment on different levels of supply chain. For example, McDonald's could purchase a large scale farm in the US to produce meat for the restaurant. So that can be a type of vertical. So it can be either forward or backward, of course. So vertical foreign direct investment means a forward integration or backward integration, right? So forward integration means a company is going forward in its supply chain and making an investment. For example, if Apple, basically a production company based in US, going to install Apple Store, that is retail selling in India. And backward integration means a company is going backward in its supply chain and making an investment. For example, Walmart, a retail chain giant, we all know, is going back to manufacturing the products in India. So that are examples. Next is inward foreign direct investment. Now, inward FDI simply means foreign direct investment coming to the country. Foreign direct investment is coming to a country in which the investment environment is good, of course. For example, Coca-Cola is coming to invest in India because they see that environment is good, the market is open, right? Outward. Now, outward FDI means the FDI going out of the country. It happens when the country's investment environment is not good. So when the entity is enough invested, or they want to go overseas market. For example, Infosys, an Indian company, is going to invest in Google, a US company. That is outward FDI, right? Now, conglomerate FDI. Now, conglomerate FDI involves investment in an unrelated industry and market. It is done as a part of diversification strategy. Like for example, ACC Cement, an Indian cement company, is starting an insurance company in Australia. So there is no relation with the insurance company and the cement company. So that is conglomerate. So there are different modes of FDIs. Now, what are different motives behind FDIs? So motives of FDI in foreign countries are natural resource seeking or market seeking and or efficiency seeking. Let's find them one by one. So if it is resource seeking, Resource seeking FDI is related to the presence of natural resources. The natural resources or factor driven FDI includes the availability of low cost, unskilled labor, skilled labor, and quality of physical infrastructure as determinants of FDI. Now, given the abundance of natural resources in Africa, a greater amount of FDI would be expected to be in the primary sector. For instance, FDI to less developed countries such as Chad, Equatorial Guinea, Angola, or Sudan, which are resource abundant, is mainly in petroleum exploration. So this would be like resource to seek the resource which are available at a lesser cost can be a motive for an FDI. A firm with a resource-seeking FDI invest in the foreign country order take advantage of its natural resources or agriculture production, right? While market-seeking FDI is designed to serve only the local market. So resource-seeking type of FDI is intended to serve the local, home and third country markets. Some main determinants of resource-seeking FDI include natural resources, of course, raw materials, and the complementary factors of production. So that's why how the motive of an FDI. So next motive is market seeking. The main objective of market seeking FDI is to serve domestic markets, which means that goods are produced in the host country and sold in the local market. As a result, this type of FDI is driven by domestic demand, such as large market and high income in the host country. So the market size, wage level, and growth become essential characteristics for the country which hosts market seeking FDIs. Now, market seeking FDI is also referred to as horizontal FDI since it usually involves building similar plants in a foreign location to supply that market, right? Now, the main motive behind market seeking FDI is to exploit the new markets. A market seeking company invests in the host country in order to serve its demand for goods. So in this case, the production activities are replicated in several locations to satisfy the local demand, resulting in horizontal FDI. So the main factors that encourage this type of FDI are market size and market growth of the host country, of course, the access to the regional and global markets, and the market structure, right? The next motive is efficiency seeking. Now, efficiency seeking or cost reducing investment is undertaken by MNCs to provide more favorable cost basis for their operations. Now, efficiency seeking FDIs aim to minimize cost in the use of factors of production at the international level. The focus is on the prospect of lowering cost through utilizing government induced structural imperfections such as tax differentials or reducing risk through diversification of production. So the focus is on the productivity of labor, the cost of resources, the cost of inputs, and the participation of regional integration framework, right? The efficiency seeking FDI tends to be located in the countries with skilled, disciplined workforces and good technological and physical infrastructure, of course. Now, the efficiency seeking FDI is described by investment undertaken in order to minimize what? Production cost. So it takes place when market seeking investment as well as resource seeking investment have been already realized. So this type of FDI is considered to be a vertical investment and include sufficiently skilled labor, business related policies, trade policies, and of course physical infrastructure, as I told you, right? So these were the motives behind FDI. Now let's understand the difference between FDI and FPI. Now, foreign direct investment and foreign portfolio investment. Now, foreign direct investment and foreign portfolio investment are the two important forms of foreign capital we all know. So the real difference between the two is that while FDI aims to take control of the company in which investment is made, FPI aims to reap profits by investing in shares and bonds of the investment entity without controlling the company, right? So both FDI and FPI are the most well sought type of foreign capital by the developing world. Usually, both these are measured in terms of the percentage of shares their company they own in a company. That is 20%, 10%, whatever. So, according to the existing regulation of SEBI, FPI is investment in shares of a company not exceeding 10% of the total paid up capital of the company. So, any investment above 10% is FDI as with that size of shareholding. So, the foreign investor can exert control in the management of the company. So, that is the main basic difference, right? So, FDI is an investment by non-resident entities, as we all know, like MNCs to carry out business operations in India, with management of investment, production of goods and services, employing people and marketing their products. So in FDI, both the ownership and control of the firm is with the investor, right? The foreign investor usually takes a considerable stake or shareholding in the company and exerts management influences completely or partially, depending on the shareholding, of course, right? So what is foreign portfolio investment? FPI, on the other hand, is investment in shares, bonds, and debentures. According to the IMF, portfolio investment is defined as cross-border transactions and positions involving debt or equity securities, other than those included in direct investment or reserve assets. So, FPI or FDI, of the two, which is more desirable, right? So, FDI means real investment, whereas FPI is monetary or financial investment. Here, FDI means the investor makes investment in building and machineries directly in the company in which he has made the investment. And FPI doesn't create such productive asset creation directly. It is just financial investment. So FDI is certain predictable that takes production risk, have stabilizing impact on production. It directly augments, of course, employment, output, export, etc. The major merit of FDI is what? Is that it is a non-debt creating as well as non-volatile, less fluctuating, right? So FPI, on the other hand, is investment aimed at getting profits from shares, interest from deposits, etc. So it is otherwise known as hot money. The portfolio investor stays his money in the capital market only for a short period of time. So its destination period is so small and is empirically considered as fluctuating, often short-term capital. It is highly volatile, of course, a fair weather friend, that is speculative, involves exchange risks and may lead to capital flight and currency crisis affecting real economic variables, of course. So it is, I believe, destabilizing in the foreign exchange market. So fluctuations in the mobility of FPI affects foreign exchange market rate, of course, domestic market money supply, value of rupee, call money rates, and security markets, etc. Now, foreign institutional inflows depends on two factors. First, return potential of the destination market, that is host country, and second, availability of risk capital at source geographies, that is home countries like for example US. A change in environment in any of these will result in quick reversal of the flows, right? So if FDI is certain, long-term and less fluctuating, FPI is speculative, highly volatile and unpredictable. Hence FDI is superior to FPI, of course, because it is less volatile, it is less fluctuating, right? It is long-term. Understood? Now foreign forex. Now what is forex market? Foreign exchange market. The forex market is the market in which participants can buy, sell, exchange and speculate on currency. So foreign market is made up of banks, commercial companies, central banks, investment management firms, hedge funds, and retail forex brokers and investors. So foreign exchange is the process of exchanging one currency into another currency for a variety of reasons, usually for commerce, trading, or tourism. What are the basics of foreign exchange? The foreign exchange market is not dominated by a single market exchange, but a global network of computers and brokers from around the world. So foreign brokers act as market makers as well and may post bid and ask prices for a currency pair and that differs from the most competitive bid in the market. So the forex market is made up of two levels, the interbank market and the over-the-counter market. The interbank market is where large banks trade currencies for purposes such as hedging, balance sheet adjustments, and on behalf of clients. And the OTC market is where individuals trade through online platforms and brokers. The operating hours are from Monday morning in Asia to Friday afternoon in New York. The forex market is a 24-hour market, meaning it does not close overnight. So this differs from the markets such as equities, bonds, and commodities, which all close for a period of time, generally in the New York late afternoon. So, however, as with most things, there are exceptions. Some emerging market currencies closing for a period of time during the trading day. The big players are the US dollar is by far the most traded currency, making up close to 85% of all trades. Second is euro, which is a part of 39% of currency trades, and third is Japanese yen at 19%. Look, these figures do not total to 100 because there are two sides of every foreign exchange transaction, right? So the foreign exchange, also called as FX or forex market, is a global marketplace for exchanging national currencies against one another. Because of the worldwide reach of trade, commerce, and finance, forex markets tend to be the largest and most liquid asset markets in the world. Remember, currency trade against each other as exchange rates pair, for example, euro versus USD. Exchange foreign markets exist as spot markets as well as derivative markets, offering forwards, futures, operations, and currency swaps. So market participants use forex to hedge against international currency and interest rate risk, to speculate on geopolitical events, and to diversify portfolios and several other reasons, right? So here we end this particular video, and I've cleared the concepts, different concepts. Remaining concepts will be cleared in the next video. Thank you.